Good morning, readers and writers. Before we get started today, we need to check out a little bit of vocabulary that we'll be coming across in our RQ2 Research Question 2 organizer. So the first one we need to take a look at is producer. So what I would like you to do right now is take out your ELA notebook, write down the word producer. Our definition of producer, as we talked about this morning, a producer is a living thing that gets their energy from the sun and makes their own food through a process called photosynthesis. Go ahead and pause the video right now and write down this definition. Press play when you're done. Great, so you should have the definition of producer written down in your notebook. So this morning we also talked about adaptations. Adaptations are features that help plants or animals survive in the environment. For example, a polar bear has a small ears and tail. This adaptation minimizes heat loss. So go ahead and pause the video now, write down this definition. Press play when you're ready. Okay, so we should have the definition of producer and of adaptations in our ELA notebooks. This will help us out today. So today we are taking a look at Research Question 2. This is all about producers, or those living things that create their own food, plants. What you're going to be looking at are how producers adapt or change to meet the needs of their environment. How have they adapted to get what they need from their ecosystem in terms of energy, water, nutrients? What are some other adaptations they have? What do they give back to their ecosystem, and where did you find your information? So I'm going to show you some of my organizer today using this passage that you've already read. So let's take a look at this passage about the temperate forests. Temperate forests change with the seasons. As the spring days warm up and get longer, tree sap flows to the flower and leaf buds, triggering them to open. On the forest floor, wildflowers are in a race against time to grow, bloom, and produce seeds before the tree's new leaves block the sunlight. During the long, warm summer days, forest trees are in full swing, making both food and seeds. Green-colored chlorophyll in leaves soaks up the sun's energy and uses it to turn water and air into food. Forest shrubs and herbs are also busy making food, and many are heavy with ripe fruit and berries. The forest floor is dark now, so many plants die, leaving mostly ferns and mosses growing there. In the fall, as the days grow cooler and shorter, a deciduous tree cuts off the flow of sap to its leaves. As the leaves begin to die, the green chlorophyll fades. Now other colors that were in the leaves all along start to show through, such as yellow, red, and purple. Because sap is no longer flowing to the leaves, they eventually fall off. Most of the woodland's trees are inactive or dormant during the short, cold days of winter. Many trees and wood shrubs produce chemicals that keep their sap from turning to ice. So from this passage, I found a lot of important information. So the first thing I'm going to do is tag that in my text. So this line here, produce seeds before the tree's new leaves block the sunlight. So this is a race against time. I saw here that trees, they make both food and seeds, and I saw that they're using chlorophyll in their leaves to soak up the sun's energy. So that is how they're getting their energy, and that's how they're making their food. I saw here that deciduous trees cut off the flow of sap to its leaves, because up here we learned that that sap is a trigger for things to sprout and for things to blossom. In the winter, they adapt, they stop doing that, so they know it's time to shut down. Here I saw that trees are inactive or dormant. That's because they're being triggered to shut down up here. And they produce chemicals that help keep their sap from freezing. So these are a lot of adaptations I've learned about. So from this article, I pulled out the names of some of the producers that I found: wildflowers, trees, shrubs, mosses, and ferns. So starting with wildflowers and the information that I found here, what I was able to pull out is that they try to grow before tree leaves are blocking the sunlight. So we heard that up in the top here, before the tree's new leaves block the sunlight. So they have adapted to getting their energy. What I also learned is that they're really getting most of their nutrients in the spring and summer while things are blooming and while things are blossoming. So that's where they're getting their food, their energy, and that's when they're really growing. I also learned that they give back seeds for more flowers to sprout in the next spring. So we learned that in the bottom paragraph talking about annuals and perennials. So what they give back to the environment, these wildflowers, they leave seeds behind so the next batch can grow. So all this came from Producers in the Forest, page 25. In terms of trees, I learned that chlorophyll soaks up sun's energy. So this is where they're getting their energy in order to produce everything else. It's these bits of chlorophyll in their leaves. I also learned that this energy from chlorophyll turns their water and air into food. I learned that tree sap flows to flowers and leaves, which then signals for them to open. So I thought that was a really cool adaptation. All of this information I found in Producers in the Forest, page 25. Shrubs, I learned that trees and shrubs produce chemicals to stop their sap from freezing. So this could be trees and shrub. So that's an adaptation they have through the colder months to survive for their food producing seasons. I also learned that what they give back to the ecosystem are ripe fruit and berries. That was in our text. And this came from Producers in the Forest, page 25. Mosses and ferns, I learned that they can survive in the dark. Towards the bottom of the text, it talked about how once the leaves grow, everything becomes a little bit darker. It's blocking the sunlight. These mosses and ferns have adapted to survive in that environment. And that page came from Producers in the Forest, page 25. So this is the information I got from one source. You will be looking at many more sources, so your organizer will not end up with blanks. Mine will fill in completely when I look at 2 more books and 2 to 3 websites. So that is something to keep in mind. Mine is blank because I've only started with one source so far. I have many more to go. So if you remember, the expectation of what we'll be doing with this, which will be happening tomorrow, is right here in this writing organizer. You'll get a chance to see your last writing pieces before you write again tomorrow. But we are looking for complete sentences, an introductory sentence, key details. We need a main idea. Every key detail needs to be explained. I need a concluding sentence, and I need complete sentences where the errors do not impact my ability to read it. So this is what you're researching for. So the more you have in here, the easier this is tomorrow. So today, what you're doing at the end of this video is you're researching RQ2. You have to start with 2 or 3 books before you use a website. So when you have your book out, I'd like you to flag important information in your text that will help you fully complete reading question 2, research question 2, just like you saw me do. Once you've flagged your information, write it down in your RQ2 organizer. The more you have, the better, and that's because of this expectation tomorrow. You need to cite all of your sources in RQ2 and the Works Consulted page. So you need to write your sources down in this column, and you need to flip to the back of your packet for your Works Consulted pages. That's for book or website. Once you've looked through 2 to 3 books, you can look at 2 or 3 websites once you're done finding your book information. Now remember, on a website, you are not rapidly clicking. You're using Kittle. I'll put that link on Canvas. And you need to make sure you're citing your source. Write down where that information came from. So I'm looking forward to see these completed research question 2 organizers at the end of class today. Happy research.